Hello, thank you for tuning in to read another story with me. We're actually going to be reading a nonfiction book. Now, I've heard teachers talking about fiction and nonfiction a lot. Today, we're just going to focus on what exactly is nonfiction. What makes a story nonfiction? Now, a fiction story is a story that's make-believe. It's something that didn't actually happen. Normally, there's characters, people in the story. There's a setting, a place where the story is. There's normally a beginning, a middle, and an end. Nonfiction books are different. They normally don't have characters. They normally don't have a setting. And they normally don't have a beginning, middle, and end. Nonfiction is focusing on teaching you things. So it's stories or books that you learn something from. We're going to be reading the book Ready, Set, Go, written by Jeffrey L. Williams. And as we're reading the story, we're going to be talking about how we can tell this is a non-fiction story. It's not one telling us a fun story about characters. It's a book that's teaching us things. I see a clue on the front cover that tells me this is going to be a book that's teaching me things. I see a real photograph. This isn't an illustration. There's no animals that are talking in this picture. It's an actual photograph of people in real life. That's telling me maybe it's teaching me about people, and I'm going to make a prediction that this is going to be about maybe a race that's going to be part of this book, given the title Ready, Set, Go, and the picture of the people running a race. Okay. Most nonfiction stories have something very important at the beginning. They have a table of contents. Now, the table of contents tells you what you're going to learn about in your story. So we're going to learn about winter races. And if you follow over here, it tells you what page that's on. It's on page 4. We're going to learn about water races. What page will we learn about that on? Page 7. Driving races on page 10. Riding races on page 12. Summer races on page 14. There's a glossary on page 17 and an index on page 18. If there's a glossary or an index in a book, it's normally nonfiction. Glossaries and indexes are always in the back of the book. So let me open up to the glossary. The glossary is like a little mini dictionary. It takes an important word from the story and tells you what it means. So there's only one word in our glossary for this entire book, and it's the word row. And it's to move a boat by pulling paddles with your arms. Oh, like row, row, row your boat. That's what the word row means. Also in the back is the index. Let's look. This is where it teaches you important words from the story. And it tells you what page it's on. Do you notice I keep saying the word it teaches you? The chapters are teaching you. The index is teaching you. The glossary teaches you what these words mean. If a book is teaching you something, it's nonfiction. So, bikes is on page 13. Boats are on page 8 and 9. We're also going to learn about cars, eating, horses, ice skating, motorcycles, rowing, running, sailing, skiing, sledding, and swimming. Wow, we're going to learn a lot in this story. Let's get started on Ready, Set, Go. I'm going to open up to the first part here. People like to have races to see who is fastest. Is this telling us once upon a time there was a little boy who ran a race? It's teaching us about races. Some people like to have races to see who's the fastest, and it's a real photograph. We have many ways to race. Is this telling us first the man got in his wheelchair and ran his race? No. It's not telling us a story, it's teaching us about races. Winter races. We could have a race to see who can ice skate faster. That's a race you can do in the winter time. This is actually called speed skating. That's pretty cool. We could have a race to see who can ski faster. So you both start at the same time and you go down, and who can ski down the hill fastest? That's pretty cool. Or we could have a race to see who can go down a hill on a sled the fastest. You could have a sledding race. Water races. Ooh, do you see these bold words here? That's a heading. Headings are normally in nonfiction stories. It's telling us this part's about what type of races? Water races. We could have a race to see who can swim faster. We could have a race to see who can row a boat faster. Or we could have a race to see who can sail a boat the fastest. So in these boats, they're rowing with their hands, with a paddle. In this one, they're using sails. That's how they're racing differently. Driving races, ooh, my favorite. We could have a race to see who can drive a car faster. Look at that real photograph. That happened in real life. Or we could have a race to see who can ride a motorcycle faster. Riding races. We could have a race to see who can ride a horse faster. Look at that really cool photograph. That's telling me, it's teaching me about races with horses. Or we could have a race to see who can ride a bike the fastest. Summer races. We could have a race to see who can run faster. Or we could have a race to see who can eat a pie the fastest. Oh, that's so cool. It's a different type of a race. It's an eating race. Mr. Kilmer would be good at that one. What kind of race would you like to have? Awesome job. Do you see how this book was different than a story that has a beginning and a middle and an end, with characters and a setting? It didn't really tell us a story. Instead, it taught us information all about races. So, my literacy challenge for you today is to think, what makes this a nonfiction story? Maybe you can see if you can find 3 ways that this book, is a nonfiction book. 3 different ways. We talked about a lot in this video. I hope to see that you're coming up with some ways that you know that this book is nonfiction. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm excited to read another story with you soon. Bye-bye.